Hey there, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. It's me, Michael, coach of the Route 1 Burbs, bringing you a feature match from WCL Season 15, Week 3. We've got the Buffalo Bouffalant going up against the Tera Fire Heat Wave. The Bouffalant had an unfortunate loss to myself in the first week, but bounced back with a 6-0 in Week 2 against the Chicago Clods. The Heat Wave, however, have been doing great with a 4-0 in Week 1 and a 5-0 in Week 2. Can they get the 6-0 this week, or will the Bouffalant be finally cementing their season back on the right track after that unfortunate hiccup in Week 1? Let's see how it all goes down. The Bouffalant have Cinderace, Latios, Terra Captain Mismagius, Terra Captain Yanmega, Gligar, Cloth, Terra Captain Bisharp, Komala, Empoleon, Galarian Weezing, Iron Hands, and they're going up against the Heat Wave with Terra Captain Deoxys Speed, Zarude, Mienshao, Yanma, Landorus Therian, Revavroom, Basculegion, Seviper, Clefable, Terra Captain Bellabolt, and Dragouge. Looking at the speeds for both teams, it's pretty even, I'd say. The Heat Wave, of course, have that blisteringly fast Deoxys speed, blazing past everything else, but the Bouffalant have the second and third fastest mons in the matchup before both teams then go down to base 105. After that, I think maybe more Pokemon in kind of like the 90s-ish give the Heat Wave a slight lead in the speed game, but it's pretty close. For the overall matchup, though, well, looking at the Heat Wave, the Bouffalant could take advantage of weaknesses to Fire, Flying, Ghost, Ground, Ice, and Psychic, with Dragon, Fairy, Normal, and Rock actually all being decent neutral options to them as well. With a lot of potential types to take advantage of a lot of the Bouffalant's offense looks pretty good. Stuff like Cinderace, Latios, and Mismagius with a potentially very spammable Shadow Ball. Gligar and Weezing could be pretty good defensive pieces for them as well. The Gligar is a little interesting in this matchup. Of course, it's a pretty good physical wall and stuff like the Mienshao, the Landorus, the Revavroom, but it does have to watch out for stuff like the Basculegion being a strong water move into it, even if it is still a physical attacker. Revavroom could, potentially Toxic it. Mienshao could have an Ice-type move. There's a lot of things that it could find itself in a little bit of a predicament in the match, so we'll see if the Bouffalant end up going with it or try to rely on one of their other defensive pieces. The Weezing, though, I definitely think is pretty solid just as a nice defensive piece overall. For the Heat Wave, looking at the Bouffalant, well, the Bouffalant are weak to water, and Ghost is decent neutral coverage, and, well, that's about it. The Bouffalant have a very defensively sound team. They do have a complicated relation to ground, though, 5 weaknesses and 5 immunities, but Knockoff is good into 3 of those immunities, so maybe we could see something, we use Knockoff and like a Terra Ground or something to try and blow through some of those mons. Since there aren't any of those key types really to take advantage of, though, I think we could see something like Adaptability and maybe a choice item on Basculegion, and stuff like setup options on Deoxys and Revavroom to end up trying to break through with raw power instead of typing. Overall, I'm definitely going to say I favor the Bouffalant here. They're just a much more solid defensively team, some pretty spammable and fast mons in the match, and one of the best coaches in the league. I just think it's going to be pretty hard for the Heat Wave to pick apart this matchup. But with that out of the way, let's go and see what the coaches decided to bring to the match. Here are the Bouffalant's 6 mons, starting things off with a Latios. We've got max special attack, near max speed, timid with a choice scarf to outspeed everything but scarfed Deoxys speed. Luster, Purge, and Draco Meteor Stab with flip turn pivoting and utility option in Trick there. I love this set. Dragon and Psychic are pretty strong into the Heat Wave, and the inclusion of Trick to cripple something like a Clefable or bulky Bellabolt switching into a Draco Meteor is fantastic as well. I really just like this set. I think it's going to be a star for the Bouffalant this week for sure. Next up is Iron Hands, max HP heavy special defense investment with a boosting nature and enough speed to outspeed no speed Clefable. Assault Vest boosts that special defense investment further. Earthquake, Heavy Slam, and Ice Punch coverage with Thunder Punch as a stab option. Let me tell you, don't underestimate base 140 attack just because it's uninvested. This set takes 39% max from Modest Dragouge's Draco Meteor and still does up to 74% back to max HP Dragouge with Earthquake. Heavy Slam is very likely to 2-shot max defense Clefable through leftovers as well, and this Pokemon is absolutely crazy. It's just a huge bundle of stats. This Pokemon is built to take hits overall and dish out good damage with its coverage moves, and while that's solid, there is a chance that potentially it underperforms a little bit, depending on just how often the Bouffalant find themselves needing to switch into this thing as a pivot and taking a big move with this particular piece of bulk. They have other bulk on the team, but we'll just see how if the Iron Hands is able to be preserved, or it ends up getting chipped down throughout the match. Speaking of other bulk, we've got Empoleon, max HP, max defense with a boosting nature, and a Shucka Berry to take a ground-type attack. Competitive gets a boost from Landorus's Intimidate or any other random stat drops. Flip turn, momentum, flash cannon stab option, knock off coverage, and roost for a bit of recovery. And, well, this set confuses me a little bit more. I definitely see the value of the Fizz-Def Wall for things like Landorus, Basculegion, Mienshao. I'm just not sure how much this Pokemon does once it's in. Flash Cannon isn't bad into the Heat Wave, and Knockoff provides some nice utility and ability to hit stuff like Deoxys and Basculegion. But, I don't know, I just don't particularly see the plan for this Pokemon. I feel like it's going to take a couple hits and do, like, I don't know, maybe 40% to something, and that's about it. It's not bad, but I'm just not seeing real payoff for this Mon yet, but I do have faith in the Bouffalant, and I do expect that it'll do some solid work for them in this match. They always bring good stuff, even if it doesn't look like it at first. Next up is that Galarian Weezing, max HP, max defense with a boosting nature, and Black Sludge for recovery, and Levitate protecting it from ground-type moves. Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, and Taunt utility with Sludge Wave Stab. Now, this Fizz-Def-Mon I definitely understand better. Great immunity into the Landorus, quad resists the Mienshao, resists both of Zarude stabs, all the while spreading status with Will-O-Wisp at Toxic. Personally, I think I'd be looking at maybe Pain Split over Taunt. I'd love for this thing to stick around a bit longer, maybe paired with something like a Rocky Helmet, but this looks quite useful defensively, and I definitely expect it to perform well. I had Galarian Weezing last season, loved it, great Pokemon, definitely looking forward to see what it does. Next up is Cinderace, max attack Adamant with enough speed to outspeed Adamant Zarude, and then the rest in HP. Boots to ignore hazards, pairing nicely with Court Change to swap them around. Pyro Ball, Sucker Punch, and Iron Head are all going to be powered up by Libero, making this a pretty scary Mon all throughout the match. I'm really excited to see this set in action. I think Cinder looks great, but I'm really interested in is Court Change. It's a cool and useful move, but it is awkward to use and doesn't, really work if your opponent sets hazards back up against without removing your generous gift from their side. Bouffalant have a fantastic coach, though, so I'm excited to see, how it should be used in a match. And it's definitely, hey, swapping around hazards, essentially removing and setting them in one turn is huge value. It's just a question of getting the room to do that with a Pokemon that loves to just click the Pyro Ball button. And last up is the Bisharp. Max HP and attack Adamant nature, with Terra Steel being a very interesting choice here, and Defiant countering the Intimidate drops from Landorus, turning it into a net attack boost. It'll boost the Terra will boost the damage of Iron Head, but I don't think the Dark type was really hurting it too much in the matchup. Sucker Punch and Throat Chop are the Dark Stab options, with Swords Dance to boost up thanks to the Eviolite bulk, giving you that room to survive some hits and get those boosts off. And if this gets a Swords Dance off, watch out, and it certainly can against several potential opponents. I think this looks quite nice, but it will have to win the Sucker Punch guessing game if it truly wants to pop off. But again, I have faith in the coach of the Bouffalant, and we'll see how it does. Overall, this isn't really what I was expecting from the Bouffalant, but I am looking forward to seeing how the team plays. No Gligar, no Mismagius, which I thought the Bouffalant may try to have some fun with this week, but the Weezing and Bisharp fill in for those kind of nicely. I do think the weakness of this team is it needs to play well into its opponent. While Cinder and Latios look pretty strong and simple, stuff like the Iron Hands and Empoleon are a little bit trickier sets, relying on coverage and utility options to kind of outplay the opponent. I don't think that's at all a bad thing, though, and it certainly suits the Bouffalant's playstyle, but it is those kinds of things that open them up to finding themselves in a disadvantageous position depending on how the match plays out. What Pokemon the opponent brings, what Pokemon are left at key parts of the games, what sets people are running. I think this is a more kind of react to what your opponent brings kind of team, and we'll see how well the Bouffalant are able to do that. And here we have the Heat Waves 6 Mons. We're going to start things off with the Revavroom, max attack and speed adamant nature, or at least as close as you're going to get without technically being that, with filter to reduce super effective damage and a Lumberry to ward off a status. At +2 speed, this is going to actually just outspeed max speed Scarfed Cinderace. Shift Gear is here to let you get that +2 speed along with +1 attack. Hard Press is a stab option with high horsepower coverage, and then Torment as the last move. This is a set for sure. Hard Press is a Steel-type move with base power equal to your opponent's percentage of HP, so it'll be base 100 against a full health opponent, and base 50 against an opponent at half health. It's an interesting choice when you've got good old reliable Iron Head there, or the signature Spin Out. At +1, it has a good roll to KO both Max Defense Galarian Weezing and Max Defense Cloth, so this set is strong if it gets a Shift Gear and the opponents are all high health, but we'll see if later in the game it could struggle a little bit more. High horsepower is definitely great though, hitting all the steel resists super effectively. And lastly, Torment, which prevents your opponent from using the same move twice in a row until they switch out. Another interesting move choice, as I don't really know what this is trying to stop. If you have time to click Torment, you have time to click Shift Gear, and with minimal bulk, I don't know if you can really just sit around being disruptive. Iron Head, Haze, Parting Shot, Toxic, Magnet Rise to set up on something like Gligar. There's a lot of options that could have gone there, but hey, I love seeing niche stuff pop off, so more power to them, and I hope it does work in the match. Next up is Landorus Therian, max HP, almost max speed, modest to outspeed Cloth with a little extra special attack investment with the leftover EVs there. Focus Sash makes me think this could be a dedicated lead. Earth Power Stab with U-turn momentum, Stealth Rocks, and then Taunt. I like this set. The special attack stab hits Iron Hands harder than Earthquake, and Taunt is nice too for shutting down something like Gligar. The Intimidate is great into things like Cinderace, Iron Hands, and Bisharp if it isn't running into Defiant, but it probably will be. But we'll see just how many hits this set can take with just max HP. Basculegion is next, max attack and speed, adamant nature, weakness policy, and adaptability, going to let it potentially dish out absolutely huge damage. Agility, and then at +2, it'll outspeed everything but Scarfed, Timid / Jolly, Latios, and Cinderace. Liquidation and Phantom Force are the stab options, primarily with Aqua Jet for some nice priority there. And, well, this set hits like a truck, but I'm really questioning the weakness policy, as, I mean, you're absolutely getting trucked by any stab super effective move of choice. Mismagius' Shadow Ball and Bisharp's Sucker Punch are doing a little under and over 90%, to say absolutely nothing of an electric move from Iron Hands. Sure, you could take a stray knockoff from Empoleon, or maybe something like Iron Hands Volt Switch, but I do think a Resist Berry could be useful a lot more of the time. With Kamala and Bisharp the only ghost resists, though, expect this thing to get off some big damage during the match. Next is Deoxys Speed, max special attack, timid nature with enough speed to outspeed Scarfed Modest Latios. Expert Belt for some extra damage, and Tera Fighting to resist Sucker Punch as well as boost some damage coming out of the Focus Blast. Psychic and Ice Beam are the other attacks of choice, with Nasty Plot for some additional power. This set looks really scary, with the Expert Belt boosting super effective damage into everything but Cinderace and Mismagius, who are rolls to KO with +2 Psychic. Focus Blast is always a gamble on hitting it, but with the Tera, it does 73% minimum to specially defensive Empoleon. At +2, Tera Blast would be plenty strong, but you are frail, still taking 25 to 30% from Bisharp's Sucker Punch, even after you've Tera'd to resist it. So the setup isn't free by any means, and I do like the just raw power of being able to fire out a Focus Blast. This definitely looks very frightening, though only once any potential choice scarfs are identified. Like I said, you're not particularly bulky, and you definitely want to know what could get a surprise hit on you first. Next up is Dragalge, max HP, near max special attack with a boosting and speed lowering nature, and a couple EVs and special defense. Assault Vest will let it take some special hits better. Draco and Sludge Bomb Stab with Flip Turn, Momentum, and Focus Blast coverage for those Steel types. The Assault Vest lets this barely always live specs modest Latios's Luster Purge or timid Soldu Draco Meteor, while also taking hits from stuff like Yanmega and Mismagius. Sludge Bomb does half to max HP Galarian Weezing, with Focus Blast smacking the steel Pokemon that resist the Dragon and Poison. So if this gets in clean, definitely expect something to get smacked. This set looks pretty strong, and I'm excited to see it in action. And last up is Clefable. Max HP with mixed defensive investment and 80 speed EVs, speed tying no speed Bisharp. Magic Guard protects it from passive damage, and the Moringa Berry boosts its special defense when it's hit by a special move. Moonblast Stab with Moonlight Recovery, and then Thunder Wave and Healing Wish for some utility options. The Moringa Berry is fun and lets it live 2 timid Specs Luster Purges from Latios, assuming no special defense drop, or 2 non-Specs hits if the berry cancels out a Luster Purge special defense drop. This is another weird set. The mixed defensive investment lets it tackle a variety of attackers, but it's still going to take a lot of damage from the scarier mons. We'll just have to see how well it can handle what shows up and how many hits it has to take, and if it can find the room to heal up between taking them. Overall, the Heat Wave were definitely in the kitchen when they were building this week. They've got some really solid stuff like Deoxys and Dracalge, and then you've got stuff like Hard Pressed Torment Revavroom, which is a bit more out there. All these sets definitely have potential, though. We'll just have to see if some of those more niche selections really pay off, and I'd love to see them do so. So without further ado, let's see if that happens as we get into the match itself. Looking at the teams at Team Preview here, well, for the Bouffalant, there's no Zarude, meaning that Luster Purge is super free. Deoxys is the only resist, and it's shown that it's Tera Fighting, so that would only become weak if it Terras. No Bellabolt is additionally a nice little piece of bulk that they won't have to break through, but I don't think a particularly big deal for this Bouffalant team. For the Heat Wave, though, no Gligar means limited hazards to set up against this no-removal Heat Wave team. No Mismagius is one less possible Choice Scarf to outspeed Deoxys, and no Yanmega also means kind of limited potential speed shenanigans against that Deoxys and some of the kind of speedy setup mons. For leads, we're going to see the Bouffalant go Latios and the Heat Wave go with Landorus. The Latios looks good into most leads here. You also have that Scarf you can just flip turn out on a lot of things, so it makes sense. And then Lando, it has that Focus Sash, it can get up guaranteed rocks, makes sense from the Heat Wave as well. Nearly unresisted Luster Purge, gonna do halves, but Death Drop not mattering much, and of course Lando gets up those rocks. Clef, it comes in to take a Luster Purge, takes a little over a third, that pops that Moringa Berry, gets that special defense boost, and no special defense drop means it's gonna be free to click whatever it wants here. Cinder comes in, maybe get afraid of potential like Fairy move, as well as getting the opportunity to potentially switch those rocks around with Court Change. Does get a Thunder Wave for switching in, though, which for the Heat Wave is pretty nice. Again, Scarf Cinderace, something that potentially outspeeds some of their faster options. Definitely nice, although you saw the boots on it, to get that just generally slowed down. Dragouge going to come in, and the Cinderace is paralyzed on what I was told was a Court Change, which would have swapped those rocks to the other side. Keep that in mind for the rest of the match. Pretty unfortunate for the Bouffalant there. Rather than sack the Cinder for another chance at Court Change, Empoleon's going to come in, take a third from the Draco Meteor. Roost is going to get Empoleon back up to full before Weak Flip Turn is going to bring out the Baskia Legion now. Liquidation going to go do 20%, get the defense drop, though, activating the competitive knockoff, though, then in return activating the weakness policy. The damage roll on Liquidation is pretty interesting. Jolly Liquidation does 20.9% max, meaning that because of the rocks damage earlier, the 21% Showdown shows is just barely in range of Jolly, which will potentially be important later looking at speeds of things. Agility up from the Baskia Legion going to make it pretty fast in this match, but the competitive boost means that Flash Cannon is going to bring Baskia Legion quite low. Spadef Drop not a big deal there. Bouffalant are in a little bit of an awkward position here, but can definitely handle this setup Baskia Legion. Both Iron Hands and Bisharp can take any hit and KO back, and Bisharp can also play the Sucker Punch slash Aqua Jet priority guessing game. Latios does outspeed, but only if Basculegion is adamant, and like I said, we haven't quite revealed its nature yet. Phantom Force going to become invulnerable, dodge a knockoff. Then, of course, the Dark type is going to come in and take that Ghost type attack, still taking 43% though. Bisharp, of course, takes that hit fine, but does need to play a bit of a guessing game here. Sucker Punch will beat out Liquidation and KO, but it will fail if the Basculegion goes for Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet will go first because they're both priority moves and the Basculegion is faster, and then Sucker Punch will fail because the Basculegion has already gone. And the Aqua Jet would do over half of the Bisharp's remaining health, so it is a guessing game of if he clicks Liquidation and you click Sucker Punch, you win. If you click Sucker Punch and he clicks Aqua Jet, he wins. So you want to be clicking the Throat Chop into the Aqua Jet or the Sucker Punch into the Liquidation slash Phantom Force, and we'll see if the Bouffalant are able to get the call right. Aqua Jet doing big damage there, but no, the Bouffalant did go for a Sucker Punch, which means the Basculegion is going to get a kill here, but now the Latios is able to come out. It's coming out, you're at +2 speed, it pretty much reveals the Scarf on the Latios here. The Phantom Force earlier revealed the adamant nature, so the Bouffalant do know that the Basculegion is going to be outsped by this Scarfed Latios. Luster Purge does strike first by 1 point of speed, getting that KO. Aqua Jet could have gotten about 37 to 44% there off of the Latios, and with Latios coming in over something like Iron Hands or something with a possible priority option, I really think you have to expect it to outspeed here. A little bit of a misplay from the Heat Wave there, not going for the Aqua Jet. Deoxys is going to be sent out here. It's going to take 38% max from Luster Purge, but can't KO with Ice Beam quite yet, although it could get off a nasty plot here if it wants. Latios going to switch into Cinder to scout what happens. Deoxys gets the nasty plot off, meaning it potentially one-shots everything left. Tera Fighting going to resist the Sucker Punch, but Libero going to mean the Dark-type Cinder gets absolutely obliterated by the hit of the Focus Blast. Nice getting that hit there, but now Latios is going to be back with now super effective Luster Purge, and, well, nothing left on the side of the Heat Wave can take 2 of them, so this is a guaranteed kill on something. Clef is going to be the thing to switch in, and it's going to take 1 Luster Purge, but it's not going to take 2 Luster Purges, going to bring out the Revavroom, who would take big damage from Luster Purge here, but will live unless there's a crit, and after a Shift Gear, Hard Press would KO this Latios, and it would be outsped. Smart switch from the Heat Wave, from the Bouffalant, sorry, knowing that the Shift Gear is incoming into the Iron Hands. Nice bulky piece, easily able to take whatever this Revavroom is going to want to do. Hit back with a super effective Earthquake. Smart switch from the Heat Wave this time, though, knowing that even at +1, they're not doing a whole lot. Landorus also not doing a whole lot. The bulky Iron Hands is just so bulky. So after the Intimidate, it's going to U-turn out of there into the Dragalge, who does take the Ice Punch better because of that Intimidate, but does get frozen. Little bit of luck back on the side of the Bouffalant after that early para. Going out into Empoleon here, switch as the Deoxys comes in for Dragalge. It's a good Pokemon into anything but Latios, who you can always sack the Dragalge to, so I think that makes sense for the Heat Wave to go to that Deoxys. For the Bouffalant, a little surprised they didn't just go for the nice Latios damage there. Of course, you see the frozen Dragalge, you want to take advantage of it somehow, switch to something, but the Empoleon is not something I would have expected here. Focus Blast going to hit again and easily get the KO, but like I said, here is the Latios getting a free kill on something, and of course it will be just sacking that Dragalge, but no, goes for Flip Turn out into the Iron Hands. without Intimidate Ice Punch. It's going to get some real good damage there before Earthquake will finish it up in case the Rever Room switched in. Intimidate going to come out, and Earth Power doing okay damage, but that bulky Iron Hands with that Assault Vest just so strong. The damage off of that Earth Power is a little unfortunate, because even that high roll, this Iron Hands set is actually just out of range of both Revavroom and Deoxys's super effective attacks, unless they get a turn 2 set up. Iron Hand's going to switch out into Latios, maybe afraid of potentially a Psycho Boost, because Psychic doesn't kill there, but Ice Beam on the predicted switch is going to get the KO thanks to all of the Rocks damage building up on that Latios. Iron Hand's again going to take some Rocks damage of its own, and here's where we see that unfortunate Para not getting those Rocks away off of the side of the Bouffalant, really chipping them down throughout this match. But a fantastic call for the prediction from the Heat Wave. Getting rid of that Latios definitely puts them pretty far ahead here. This Wheezing, we know it's not particularly offensive, that hasn't hit the field yet, and the Iron Hands is pretty low here. Because of it's going to switch into the Wheezing, again, potentially trying to bait a Psycho Boost stat drop. But now, with the additional Rocks damage, Psychic will always kill, which is going to pick up the win for the Heat Wave. This was a really good match from both coaches here, but with that full para for the Bouffalant really being unfortunate early on. But by my math, the Bouffalant took about 106% from those Stealth Rocks, and them chipping down Latios was big in putting it in range of being KO'd by that Ice Beam, which I think is what ultimately sunk the Bouffalant. They wouldn't have minded getting an extra 94% off of the Heat Wave with putting Rocks on their side as well throughout the match. But yeah, if that court change had gone off, who can say how exactly the match would have changed, but it definitely would have made things easier for the Bouffalant, because they definitely got chipped down by those pretty thoroughly. They did get the freeze, though, so I guess that helps out some, but I definitely expect a lengthy breakdown of the effect of the Rocks staying on the field in the Bouffalant's own coverage. I'll definitely link their channel in the description. Check it out whenever that video goes up on their channel. Congrats to the Heat Wave, though, who played a great game, and they move on to 3-0. Hopefully their luck continues for them this season, because I don't play them in the regular season. But with that, thank you all for watching this far. Thank you to the coaches for having this fantastic match, and I'll see you in the next one.